What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. My name is Zarria Simmons, and today I've got quite a bit on my mind that I want to share with you all regarding all of the nonsense and pure madness that I've been seeing lately. So without wasting any more time, let's just get into it. So this first clip is regarding raising the minimum wage across the country, and especially as it pertains to general labor jobs. So like working at Walmart, working at fast food restaurants, these types of general labor jobs that are predominantly worked by Black Americans. And I take issue with it.
What do you think needs to happen now to get that $15 minimum wage passed?
You know, I do believe that we should override the parliamentarian. I think that this is a matter of course, and that our constituents and people across this country put Democrats in power to, among many other things, establish a $15 minimum wage. We have a responsibility to do that. I do not believe that the parliamentarians' ruling should be really an obstacle to that. And I don't believe that we should be really tied up about this, because our two options are realistically this: override the parliamentarian or eliminate the filibuster. Delivering and making good on the promises that we made and not allowing these procedural obstacles, which can be overridden, to get in our way.
This idea that we need to raise the minimum wage, it's great in theory, but in reality, it's going to cause more damage than good. So Black Americans work majority of the general labor jobs. And this is due to several reasons. Black Americans, especially those below the poverty line, especially those in disenfranchised communities, they don't always have high education. They don't always have specific work skills, professional skills, and experience. So they are typically the ones who work these general labor jobs, as general labor jobs typically don't ask for a lot. They don't need you to have an associate's degree or an advanced degree, certain skills, lots of experience. You can typically get these jobs without having any of that. I know some people in my own hometown who never finished high school and work these types of general labor jobs. However, raising the minimum wage for them seems charitable, it seems compassionate, it seems like the right thing to do, but it's going to cause more damage than good. Reason being, these companies that hire people for general labor, they hire people who don't have a lot of education, who don't have a lot of experience. They hire them and they pay them such a low amount because they're not offering a lot of labor value. They're not offering a lot of education. They're not offering a lot of skills. They're not offering a lot of experience. They can't really command a lot of pay, and these companies know that. So while yes, $8 an hour is not a lot of money, forcing them to pay you more than what your labor value is worth, that's going to put them in a predicament where they're going to think to themselves, okay, so here's our options. We can either pay you what we feel your labor value is worth, what we've assessed your labor value is worth. You're coming in here possibly with no high school diploma or a GED. You don't have an advanced degree. You don't have a lot of skills. You don't have a lot of professional experience. We assess that your labor value is worth $10 an hour, or $9 an hour, and $8 an hour. However, it is now being made legislative law. It's now part of our U.S. code that we must pay you a minimum of $15 an hour. Why are we going to pay you more for less labor value? That does not make any sense. What we are going to do is fire you, get someone else who has more labor value, who is coming in here with a degree, or they've completed the highest level of high school education. So they graduated high school, they have more skills, they have more experience, and we're gonna hire them and pay them the $15 an hour. That makes sense. If we're going to pay you more, we expect more in return. We want our bang for our buck, basically. We want the value back that we're paying for. Not going to pay more for less value. That doesn't make any sense. So in theory, this idea that we need to raise the minimum wage cap for certain jobs, it's great in theory. Obviously, the people who want to do this are well-meaning, but they're not thinking about the actual impact and how corporations work and how businesses work. They're assuming that these companies have a heart and that they have compassion and that they're going to go, oh, absolutely, yes, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay people more for less value. That's what we're going to do. We're going to spend more money and make less profit and pay people more for less value. They're not going to do that, obviously. And they're not entitled to do that. They don't have to do that. They don't need to be compassionate because they're not people, they're corporations, they're business entities. They don't have to think about that. And so forcing these corporations to raise the minimum wage is just going to force them to fire a lot of their employees who do these general labor jobs. And a lot of these people are Black Americans. So legislation that says you got to pay $15 an hour, it's going to displace a lot of Black Americans who work these general labor jobs, as well as Latinos. My own best friend, high school best friend, did not graduate high school, did not get her GED. She has children, and she works a general labor job. So someone like her, she would get fired. This is a terrible idea. In practice, it's a terrible idea. In theory, it's great. It's, obviously we want to do better for people and offer people more money, but people are going to lose their jobs. So you got to be careful with these sort of progressive politics, because they always on the surface look like they are beneficial to people. They on the surface look like they are going to make life better for people. But when you really look at them closely and you really consider them in practice, they're going to do the polar opposite. So instead, what they could do is allow these corporations and these companies to assess how much they are going to pay you based on your value, your labor value that you're bringing to their company, and then use legislation to instead help people who are working these general labor jobs to get more education, to get more workplace skills. Don't raise the minimum wage cap, because they're going to lose their jobs. Instead, help them raise their labor value so they can command more money. So tying into that is this current ongoing issue that's been happening for a few years now of immigration, asylum seekers coming into the country, and our border security, our southern border security. So this is like such a precarious topic to tiptoe around, because if you say the wrong thing, it's very inflammatory. But I think to get to the heart of what I'm saying here and how this relates to Black Americans, I'm gonna have to step on a few toes. Anyway, let's look at the video first, then we'll come back.
Neighborhoods. It is a slap in the face that we as citizens of the United States of America do not have the resources and support, but you're going to bring people who are not citizens here in our community, in our buildings that we pay taxes for, that you took away from us. That is completely unacceptable. We are in a humanitarian crisis right now. The Black people in Chicago are bleeding on the streets.
As the leader of the free world, United States of America, best country in the world, as the leader of the free world, we do have a duty to help others. Those who are seeking asylum, those who are coming from dysfunctional societies, tyrannical governments, we have a duty to share the American dream with them, absolutely. However, we also have a duty to protect American citizens first, and that duty supersedes the former. So first Americans first, then we can help others. That's the way that it should be, that's the way that it should go, and that is not the thinking here. The thinking here is be politically correct, help immigrants. Immigrants built this country, very, very true, we can acknowledge that. But I think we can also acknowledge that without sort of forgetting that our main duty in this country is to protect Americans first. Having such a massive wave of immigrants flooding into the country, it's not only going to have an economic impact because this costs money, housing, transporting, feeding, protecting, and caring for all of these people is not free, it is costly. And there's an economic impact of having to pay for that, and that's taxpayer dollar that's doing that, but that's neither here nor there. as it pertains to Black Americans should be the most concerned about such a massive wave of immigrants coming into the country, because Black Americans stand to be impacted the most. In my own humble opinion, Black Americans stand to be impacted the most by so many immigrants coming into the country. Again, like I said just a second ago, the majority of general laborers in this country who do general labor jobs, Black, all of them, the majority of them. Now, if these employers can find the same labor value for a lower price, I am willing to bet money that they are going to take it. If they can find the same labor value that they get from general laborers here in the United States for a fraction of the cost and pay them less, they're going to do that. And I don't want to be one of those people who's like, we shouldn't allow immigrants because they're going to steal our jobs, but that's what it is. And there won't be stealing all of our jobs. It's going to be Black Americans, majority Black Americans, who work these general labor jobs, who will be let go in preference for someone who these corporations can pay less. Black Americans are the most vulnerable with this many immigrants coming into the country who provide the same labor value. They're not as educated, they don't have a lot of skills, they don't have a lot of experience. Same as general laborers who work these menial jobs, these general jobs. They bring the same labor value, only they're going to ask for less money. Black Americans stand to be the most impacted, and therefore Black Americans should be the most concerned, not the biggest proponents of this, saying, yeah, let's let everybody in. You should be the most concerned. Asylum seekers should absolutely be seen, be heard, be helped. That is what this country is about being a place of freedom for people who are searching for it. That is one of our founding principles, and we should uphold that. But at the same time, it should not be at the cost of other Americans and vulnerable Americans. Black Americans who are general laborers are the vulnerable Americans that I'm talking about. And they need to be considered first here. So I think there's another way to get around helping asylum seekers while also not displacing Black Americans who are already kind of displaced and disenfranchised. So I came across this video that I'm about to show you here in just a second. I came across this video, and I've been thinking this for a very long time now. I haven't been able to vocalize it, because when you say what I'm feeling after you see this video, you're usually looked at like you're crazy. You're usually called things like a coon and everything else under the sun. I think y'all know where I'm going with this and what I'm about to say here. But look at this video that I found, and we're gonna chat afterwards. Hi everyone. So unfortunately, the video clip that I was going to put here, I lost it and I cannot seem to find it. But just to kind of summarize what the video was about, it was a man in Chicago talking about the crime going on there. In the video, he says, our women should feel very secure about us. There's no reason why Black women should be running from the grocery store to their car because they're afraid they're going to be robbed or attacked. We're violating our women, we're violating our communities, we're killing each other. This is not how it's supposed to be. As Black men, we need to do better. So that's what the video was about, and he gave some incredible insight as to what is really happening in Black neighborhoods that are blighted with violence. So I'm gonna stop it there. You get the gist. Absolutely. Everything that he's saying, absolutely. And we have a very bad habit in the Black community of excusing this behavior. As soon as we start talking about Black on Black crime and Black on Black violence, well, there's a reason for that. It's white supremacy. It's the remnants of slavery. They are killing each other because white people did something about something some time ago. And it's always this excuse that comes up over and over again to excuse the gang violence that we see in Black communities, to excuse, that's usually the reasoning. Oh, these guys, they get out on the streets to sell drugs and get into crime and get into gangs because they can't get a job because of white supremacy and racism. And it's like, Okay, maybe some decades ago that could have been the excuse, but it cannot remain the excuse forever. It simply can't. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when you really listen to what he's saying. These men in Chicago and these men in other predominantly Black inner city neighborhoods, they are harassing the women with children especially. And I just cannot to myself fathom how I'm going to excuse a Black man harassing a Black woman to the point where she's afraid for her life by saying, oh, it's because, in his mind, it's the remnants of like white supremacy that's doing that to him. That's why he's harassing her. We're just gonna excuse that and let that go. Don't be too hard on him. It's not his fault. It's a sickness. It's white supremacy. That is madness. And also it completely, if we're going to be talking about people's lived experiences here, and the impact that these experiences have on how we behave, and to be compassionate, show them some compassion. These men are dealing with years and years of systemic racism, and that's why they're doing what they do, and that's why they're violent the way that they are. That's why they turn to crime and violence. And it's like, okay, they get all of this compassion and all of this understanding and all of this coddling. But we often forget to be compassionate to the people who have to live among these men as they terrorize their neighborhoods, as they terrorize each other. Where is the compassion, that same compassion for like the women in this video, like he said, the women who are afraid for their lives? Where's the compassion for them? Don't they deserve some compassion too, and some understanding as well, and someone to protect them and be concerned about them? Where's the compassion for the people who have to live in these neighborhoods? Good, honest, hardworking people who live in these neighborhoods, who live next to these men while they're terrorizing their neighborhoods. Where's the compassion for them? These people who are ducking into their houses, closing and locking their doors, and waiting out the violence till the sun comes up the next day so they can finally go outside and feel safe. Where is their compassion? Because it's got to be hell living like that every single day. Nobody should be living like that. Yeah, these guys should get some understanding, and we should try to get to the root of this problem and what's causing it. But at the same time, don't forget that there are people who are living among them, who live in this type of ambient violence every single day, hearing gunshots going off while they're in their house, ducking down. Like he said in the video, running to their car, getting inside their car because they're afraid they're going to be attacked. Where's the compassion for them? Who's thinking about them? What are we doing for them? It's always, oh, these men, they're dealing with, it's like racism. It's systemic racism. It's years of systemic. Okay, enough. Let's talk about the people who live among these men and what's being done for them. Nothing is being, nobody is talking about these women and the elderly and the children who have to live next to these men while they violate each other and they terrorize their neighborhoods. They deserve some compassion as well and some understanding as well. They deserve to be heard. And when they do come forward with what they're experiencing, we shouldn't immediately go, oh, well, there's a reason why that's happening to you. There's a reason why that man is harassing you. There's a reason why you're terrified to leave your house. It's because those men are dealing with systemic racism. That's invalidating. We're always talking about don't invalidate people's experiences, but you're invalidating these women and these people who live in these neighborhoods among these men, among these gangbangers, among these guys who do crime. You're invalidating them because I have to live next to these guys. So have some compassion for them too. That's all I'm saying. They're who I have compassion for. They're who I'm concerned about. I'm not as concerned about these grown ass men who are shooting each other up, beating each other down in the street, killing each other. I'm concerned about the people who have to live next to them, about the children who have to grow up next to them, about the honest, hardworking, tax-paying Black Americans who live in these communities, in these neighborhoods, and they can't get peace. That's what I'm concerned about. Why do these guys, here's my theory for why. We have given these men a bulletproof excuse. We have given them a foundation to never have to be accountable. Rather than saying these guys are committing violence because they're violent, we instead say these guys are committing violence because they're sick, they're dealing with systemic racism and years of it, it's impacting the way that they think and how they, and all they have to do anytime you try to hold these men accountable for abusing each other, their families, terrorizing their neighborhoods, anytime you try to hold them accountable for it, they have a solid, bulletproof excuse. It's not me, it's systemic racism. I do this because I can't get a job, because I'm black, because of blah, 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 and white men and white supremacy. They will never, ever, ever have to be accountable because we've given them a perfect excuse that enables them to be apologized for. That enables them to go on doing what they do with impunity. We've given them a perfect, solid, bulletproof excuse. We can absolutely undo it by saying no. Enough with that. Enough with that. That is over with. You look at the black men who own companies, look at the black men who have risen to high levels of power in this country, and women as well. The doctors, the lawyers, the politicians, the business owners, all of them. We can't use this excuse anymore that it's white supremacy. I'm committing crime because I can't get a job because white men did it. That's done. That has to be done. You can't use it forever. So these guys, they do what they do with impunity because they know black women are going to cape for them. Black women especially cape for these guys. And they hurt you the most, which is what blows my mind. They're hurting you the most. But here y'all are running to their rescue, apologizing for their violence against you, against your neighborhood, and apologizing to white men and white supremacy. And that's why I'm committing crime and doing drugs and selling drugs and shooting my fellow brothers and harassing my fellow sisters. That's why I'm doing it. Hell no. You can't use that forever. That's done. If it were police, I want police patrolling my neighborhood around the clock. I'm sick of living like this, living in this type of ambient violence. I'm getting woken up out of my sleep in the middle of the night by gunshots going off. I'm scared shitless to go from my house to my car because I think I'm going to be robbed. I can't go to the grocery store because I think I'm going to be attacked. I can't live like this. Somebody needs to do something about it. Where's the compassion for the people who are living like that? These men, like all the other men in the world, they have the capacity to be men, to be responsible, accountable men who go out into the world like all the other men in the world and earn their masculinity, earn their manhood. Go out into the world and get some responsibility for yourself. Stop harming people and get some responsibility. Act like a grown-up. It's time. Okay? Earn the respect and the love of your families, protect your people, protect your neighborhoods. That's what you're supposed to be doing. This is what men should be doing. But instead they're doing the polar opposite. I'm terrorizing my neighborhood. I'm abusing my family. Not there for my kids. Got baby mothers everywhere. The value of marriage and family is gone. In my head, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Bring back men. If there's any hope for masculinity at all, it begins with stripping away the ability to excuse this type of behavior. Responsible men don't make up excuses for their behavior. If you're being violent, there's no excuse for you, and responsible men take accountability. So if what we want is more, and since we're talking about black men, let's be specific, if what we want is more responsible and accountable black men in our communities who take care of their families, take care of their homes, take care of their communities, the first part to being responsible is not making up excuses for what you do. I'm not saying that there is no blame to be placed outside of ourselves and outside of our community, absolutely. But there's also some blame that needs to be placed within it. And we tend to not want to talk about the blame within our community and how we ourselves are responsible for what's going on in our communities. We tend not to want to talk about that. We are hyper fixated and hyper focused on placing the blame outside. It's white supremacy, it's systemic racism, but it's also a cultural thing. Our cultural values, they're gone. Godlessness is spreading rampant in black communities. decaying morality is spreading rampant in Black communities, and that is not white supremacy that's doing it. That's like a slow death of Black culture. At one point in time, Black Americans had very strong values, cultural values. You go back to the 50s and 60s and you look at Black Americans then, and even further back. In the late 1800s, you had Black Americans who were entrepreneurs, who valued marriage, same mom, same dad, not a bunch of baby daddies everywhere, a bunch of baby mamas everywhere. And we've lost those values that used to be the heart of Black communities. And as such, our communities are falling apart. Our men have lost every semblance of masculinity, and it's depressing. It's time to stop making excuses for these men and excusing their behavior and start holding them accountable. The people in these neighborhoods who are honest, hardworking people, the kids in these neighborhoods, the mothers in these neighborhoods, they deserve a safe community to live in. And if these men do not want to do their job and their duty and protect their communities, they need to be removed, frankly. Get them the hell out of there. That's who I'm concerned about. That's who I have compassion for. Okay, that's enough about this. Moving on. I could talk about that forever. Okay, so this next video is actually slightly funny. I think you're gonna get a good kick out of it, but it also, there's like an underpinning of something serious here that I wanna get into. So let's just watch the video. But before we get into it, I have something to tell you all. So recently, I have decided to start a little capsule collection where I sell modest but classy and elegant fashion, which I want to see return to the world, and I want to see more beautiful ladies wearing. So I've taken it upon myself to start a little capsule collection offering classic, elegant, modest apparel. I'm Christian conservative, and I don't think that there is enough of it in the world, and I want to see it make a comeback. So hello, you can go to my site, themodestbombshell.com, and shop some of my items in my boutique. It's a capsule collection, so I'm offering just the basics, some dresses, some skirts, some loungewear, and I would really appreciate the support. So themodestbombshell.com, the link is down in the description, as well as some links to my social media pages. So check it out, let me know what you think. Okay, moving on, back to the video.
Do you think it suppresses the African-American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to these or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for Black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for Black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
You carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any Black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Okay, you get the gist. We're gonna stop it right there. Yeah, so this is so stupid. Funny, but not funny. Funny because, like, come on. Her reaction, hilarious. But not funny. It's absurd to think that Black people, by and large, don't have standard IDs. I've got like 4 IDs: state ID, driver's license, school ID, library card. Like, for anyone born and raised in this country, the state ID is the most standard form of identification an American can have, next to our birth certificate. Hi, we're born here. Black Americans are born in America, we have those. And next to our social security card, we also have those. Your state ID is the most standard form of ID that you can have as an American. And I think sometimes these people forget that this is our country as well. Like, I think white liberals, as well-meaning as they are, the little darlings, they sometimes get so informed too informed. Like to the point where they end up misstepping and becoming out of touch. Do you know that video of Denzel Washington saying, you can't be too woke? If you get too woke, like if you watch and read the news too much and all of that, you become too woke and then you're uninformed again. This is that. Too informed to the point where you end up misstepping and becoming out of touch. And this is like based on no data, by the way. They're just like, oh yeah, Black Americans don't have IDs because they're all like super poor and like they're all like super like inferior and oppressed and they're all like really poor. They must not have IDs. This is going off of an assumption that is based on this idea that Black Americans are like, we're like a nation, we're like a third world nation right here in the United States. And though they're well-meaning, that's racist. That's kind of racist. Are you like it's assuming that Black people are so incapable of doing basic stuff, like getting an ID. They can't afford it. It's $40, by the way. Your state ID is like somewhere around 40 bucks, I think, 36, 40 bucks. Like, come on. We're not that far apart from other Americans. We are not such a world apart from white Americans, Latino Americans, and other Americans that we don't have standard state IDs. It's ridiculous. And it's absurd to think that people born in this country, just like you, don't have that. So, Black Americans, you gotta be careful with progressivism, especially as it pertains to Black Americans. Gotta be careful with progressivism because it runs the case sometimes of just being flat out super racist. It's super racist. Black Americans don't have IDs. They're poor. They can't afford it. They don't know how anyway. Do they even know where the DMV is? Do they know they can do it online? Super racist. We're not stupid. We're not that poor. So it's like, it makes me want to laugh, but it's also like, practice discernment when you're getting into progressivism because it can like teeter on that line of like, we're doing a good thing. It's kind of racist, but we're doing a good thing. It's not. Conversation in politics that we need to have IDs in order to vote. We don't need to have IDs in order to vote. And then they're making the case, progressives make the case that, well, if we enforce this law that you need to have an ID in order to vote in elections, Black Americans won't be able to vote because they, by and large, don't have IDs. What, do you think we are that poor? Yes, we do. And we absolutely should have IDs in order to vote. All Americans need to be able to have IDs in order to vote. And if you think that it's beneficial to allow people who have no ID to vote, it isn't. Black Americans will be the most impacted by that. Black Americans will be the most impacted by allowing people who have no identification in this country, immigrants, that's what it is, to vote. Immigrants make up a very large population here. They rival that of the Black American population. And if they are allowed to vote without having identification, the Democratic Party, the Progressive Party, radical leftists, they will no longer need the Black vote in order to have majority, in order to be in public office. They won't need Black Americans to vote. And if they don't need your vote, they don't need to try and court your vote and earn your vote by giving a damn about your problems. All of the issues that blight Black Americans and the Black community in one ear and out the other. They have a different demographic who will vote for them and who will promise their vote to them. And they won't need to have an ID to vote for them. So requiring that Americans have IDs in order to vote is so important, especially for Black Americans. If you want your concerns to be heard and you want to be represented and you want to have the power to command representation, you want to be a part of this fight to make sure that Americans have IDs in order to vote, because Black Americans will be the most affected if we sort of make it into law that you don't need an ID to vote here. Next video is the Nealy Penny case in New York City. Penny, who tried to restrain Nealy on the subway, we all know, and he ended up restraining him to the point where he died. That's the gist of it. So just to give you a little recap, here's the video. We'll watch it briefly and then get into how I feel about it.
Right now, CBS News has confirmed a Manhattan grand jury has indicted Daniel Penny in the chokehold death of Jordan Nealy.
But this comes after Penny was arrested for second-degree manslaughter last month. 24-year-old Daniel Penny was recorded holding Jordan Nealy in a chokehold on an F train on May 1st. He was arrested 11 days later. Nealy was a 30-year-old subway performer who had been homeless. Witnesses told police he had been acting erratically, and they described feeling threatened before Penny intervened. While out on bond, Penny released a video this week claiming he was acting in self-defense and never meant to end Jordan Nealy's life. If found guilty of second-degree manslaughter, he could face up to 15 years in prison.
Yeah. Let me just start by saying this. What happened to Nealy, incredibly tragic, and I can say that it's tragic without necessarily apologizing for his criminal record. We can agree that it was tragic without that meaning that we're apologizing for the fact that he's committed other crimes and he's posed a danger to people in the past. This is fact. You can look up his criminal record. He has posed a danger and a threat to other people in the past. It was not the first time that he has made himself a threat to others. We can say that it's tragic without it meaning that we're apologizing for that fact. It is tragic. However, what is happening to Penny is so unfair for so many reasons. And also what the media is doing, using race and turning this into a race thing and holding race out in front of this issue like a flagpole is pathetic to me and pitiful. They know, the media knows that right now at this time, racial tension is so high in this country. And they know that it's inflammatory. And they know that it's gonna get clicks. And they know that this is a type of thing that gets people riled up, these conversations about race. And another black man was killed by a white man. They know that that's gonna get the clicks going. And it's disgusting to me that they're using race as if race was a part of this. Because what happened to Nealy, a man with a mental illness, mental disorder, who was having an emotional outburst, Nealy could have been any race. He could have been white, he could have been Asian, black, Hispanic, didn't matter. He could have been any race. And Penny could have been any race. The man who restrained him, he could have been black too. He could have been Asian, he could have been Hispanic. And the case will remain the same, that it shouldn't have ever escalated to that. New York City can be a very precarious place, especially in the subways, especially after dark. It is not news that the subways are dangerous. It is not news that you can get killed down there, robbed, or attacked. And it shouldn't take, and this is what the city does, as someone who lives there, I'm out of the city right now, but as someone who lives there, rides the subways, as someone who's been harassed on the subways, it should not take New York City's government waiting until people get killed, attacked, or robbed in order to increase police presence down there. They shouldn't wait for danger to happen. They know that danger happens down there. They should presuppose that it's happening all the time. It could happen at any time and keep police presence down there at all times. But they don't. They wait until a situation arises, then they send in police. But it's like, at that point, what's the point? What do we need them here for? The damage is done. Someone is dead. Someone is abused. Someone is attacked. Why send the police now? They should have been here. And that's what pisses me off about this. There was no authority around who could have de-escalated and restrained Nealy. Penny and others on the train had to jump into action because Nealy was posing a threat to his own personal safety as well as to others. And sure, you can say, well, vigilantism should not be allowed, but it's like, okay, so one, when you ride subways, trains, you hear over the speaker over and over and over again, if you see something, say something. If you've been on New York City subways, you know, you've heard that. If you see something, say something. They tell you to be a good Samaritan, do your civic duty, look out for others, look out for other members of your community, keep each other safe. If you see something, say something. That's what it always says. So you're being told to get up and act if you see something. Don't just do nothing. They tell you that. That's exactly what Penny and the other passengers on the train did. Now, Penny should not have had to do that. Regular civilians should not be having to put ourselves in these situations. There should be trained authorities there They shouldn't wait until danger happens to increase police presence. Like I said, danger is always happening on the subways. Police should always be down there. And another thing, our officers across the country are not trained to deal with people, to de-escalate, not deal with, but to de-escalate people who have mental illnesses. They're not trained. People with mental illnesses are not like everybody else. When they have an emotional outburst, yes, they're a threat to themselves, but they need to be handled with care. Okay, because they are not necessarily like you and I, where they can think about what they're doing. They're like, they have a mental disability, and they need to be, considered. That needs to be considered when they're being handled. Officers are not trained on how to handle people with these mental disorders and how to de-escalate them without using force, and that's another issue that New York needs to address. It should be presupposed that there will come a time where you need to handle a person who has a mental disorder, and you need to be careful with them, and you need to be, treat them with care, and de-escalate them without using excessive force. Our officers are not trained to do that. So even if there was an officer there, Nealy likely would have been hurt, seriously hurt, if not killed anyway. And I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that these officers, they're not trained to deal with people like Nealy. So even if an officer was there, this likely would have ended very ugly regardless. That is a problem that is with the city, not Penny. That is on the city. The city knows these subways are dangerous. Officers need to be down there. Penny, on the other hand, was forced to jump into action. Now I said one, two. Had Penny and everybody else on that train done nothing, they all just sat there with their heads down, letting Nealy pose a threat to himself and to others. Let's just say Nealy was having his mental episode, his emotional outburst. Nobody did anything to restrain him. And Nealy ends up walking out the back door of one of the trains that separates the train cars, and it's just nothing there but the train tracks moving underneath you, and he would have fallen underneath the train. And nobody did anything to stop him. What would we have said then? We likely would have run to Twitter. This is so shameful. What happened to looking out for each other in society? They should have stopped him. They should have restrained him. They just let it happen. What if Nealy had his emotional outbursts? Everyone is sitting there acting like they don't see it, and he attacks someone. And he's beating them up, attacking them, dragging them, hitting them. And everybody's like, nope, can't get involved, can't get involved. I'm not an officer, I can't get involved. If you see something, say something is going on above their head in the speaker while they're acting like they don't see it. What would we have said then? Again, taken to Twitter, taken to the internet. This is disgusting. They see him attacking this person. Why are they letting him do it? Why won't they stop him? Now, when you do something, when you see something, you say something, and you do something about it, this is what happens to you. Like Penny, you go to jail. You get thrown in prison. Now, when you don't do something, and you try to avoid what's happening to Penny by sitting on your hands and acting like you see nothing going on, you're still the bad guy. Do your civic duty. Get up and do something. Why are you just sitting there acting like you see nothing going on? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Either way it goes, you lose. What's happening to Penny is so messed up on so many levels. He's trying to do his part. Like they tell you, if you see something, say something, and I'm going to keep shouting it because when you're on those subways, they shout it over and over again every couple of minutes. See something, say something. Penny jumps into action, and he helps. He's trying to help. He's doing his best to restrain him. It ends up going wrong. Penny is not a trained professional. He is not a police, and it's unfortunate that he had to do anything, because officers should have been there. They should always be there because the trains are always a dangerous place. Toting race out in front of this, like race has anything to do with it, is disgusting. Race has nothing to do with it. It's inflammatory, and it's adding fuel to the already flaming fire going on between racial tensions in this country. It's making it worse, and they're doing it just for clicks, and it's disgusting. What happened to Nealy is incredibly tragic. It could have been avoided. During the COVID pandemic, there was a lunatic running around on the subway, stabbing people to death. It was making the news. I was at work, scared, because I had to ride the train at like midnight when I got off work. The city knows these trains are deadly, they're dangerous. Anything can happen at any time. Police should be down there at all times. They know that. This is entirely the city's fault. Entirely the city's fault. Penny had to do what he had to do to help others. It ended up going bad. That was unavoidable, unfortunately, because there was no authorities there who could have handled the situation in place of him and other civilians. And even if the authorities were there, they're not trained to handle people like Nealy without hurting them. So Nealy would have likely been hurt regardless by the authorities. Only when the authorities do it, they don't go to jail. Anyway, I'm done. You get the gist of what I'm saying. So, thank you for sticking with me to the end of this video. If you liked, do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share, as it helps me get boosted in the algorithm. It helps me get more subscribers. The more subscribers I have, the more I will be able to put out these types of videos. As at this time, my equipment is very limited. So if you would like to see more videos like this from me, do participate in this channel, boost it as much as you can so we can get this out to more people and make more videos like this. And I will see you in the next one.